Right? Was that too harsh? Hey guys, this is Ryan with the Scooter Spot. In today's video, I'm giving my full review of the Unagi Model One. I've had it for a couple weeks now, given a couple rides, and I want to give my review, my thoughts of the scooter. So in this video, I'm going to go through the pricing, the features, how the ride feels, and who I think should buy the scooter. So starting with the pricing, and I usually start with this, but this video especially, I need to start with the pricing. This is a premium scooter, using air quotes on purpose. The really only premium thing about the scooter is the way it looks and the pricing. So the Unagi Model One comes in for $1,000. Ugh, really expensive for a commuter scooter, especially for the stats that you get. So when I rode the scooter, like what they advertise aside, I got top speeds of 16 miles per hour. I think I got 8 to 9 miles of range. And for me, the standout feature of the scooter is just the way it looks. For $1,000, you would hope that you'd get some nice suspension, you'd get some nice stats, you'd get some nice something, but there's not a lot that really stands out with this scooter. But there are some cool features on it, so let's go through the features. Starting with the top of the scooter on the handlebars, the Unagi Model One has nice grips on it. There is no texturing, so you might think they don't grip that much, there's not that much traction, but I found that the material is pretty good. You feel like you have a good grip on the scooter. Moving inwards now, on the right we have the throttle on a pretty big paddle. On the left we have an electric brake. And here I'm going to call out that these are both very powerful. You accelerate and deaccelerate really quickly. Compared to my XR Elite, which I ride most of the time, this thing has a lot of pop, which is fun. Moving into the middle, we have the display, which I think looks really nice. Kind of reminds me of an iPhone or maybe close to a Samsung phone with the way it looks. You can always read the display. I had really no issues. If it was really bright outside, it was fine. If it was really dark outside, it was fine. And we have a couple things we can do here. You can see that there's a lot of buttons on the display and the handlebars up here. You can change the gear. There's 1, 2, and 3 up there. 3 I found has a lot of pop. I wanted to slow it down to 2, but when you lower the gear, it also lowers the top speed. So I stuck with 3 because I like to go fast. Another thing to call out with the Unagi, kind of an interesting thing to talk about with the scooter, is the way it sounds. They went with a really interesting direction here in that it sounds like a microwave. Everything has this weird beep to it, especially the horn. It sounds like but. So, ringing a bell in the first place is kind of an awkward thing to do. It kind of sounds a little silly to go ding ding with your bell. And this sounds even worse. Like it sounds so bad to the point that I didn't even use it. I felt like 1, it wouldn't notify people that a bike or a scooter is coming. And 2, it's just annoying. Like I don't want to be the guy making that noise to everybody else. Moving down the scooter to the folding and the tiller. The Unagi has some of the best folding I've seen. One of the big pluses with the scooter is that it has true one-touch folding. You push these in, pull it down, you can fold it up and down. Pretty easy to deal with, and it makes the scooter pretty portable. The tiller, I usually skip over these with scooters, but it's a good place to call out that the whole thing, I think it's the tube here, the handlebars, and some of the rest of the scooter, is made with a carbon alloy, which makes it pretty light for its size. So this thing is 25 pounds, I think, somewhere around 25 pounds. So I found that it's pretty easy to pick up and move around compared to other scooters. Something that helps with that is when it folds down, it folds to be almost parallel with the ground, so it's pretty easy to balance and walk around with. Moving down to the tires now, the Unagi has solid tires with air pockets in them. The air pockets are designed to give it some suspension, and now is a good time to call it that it doesn't have a suspension. We'll go more into that later, but the tires, solid with the air pockets. So the benefit of this is you can't pop or puncture the scooter. The drawbacks is you don't get a lot of give or suspension with this. And this is something I really noticed with the Model One. When you're riding around, if you hit any crack or bump, you feel it. If you're riding on a smooth road or trail, you're good. If you're riding on a sidewalk that has those concrete slabs just next to each other with the seams in between them, you kind of get the roller coaster feel where you're going like bump up, bump up, bump up. It's not bad, but you are aware of it. And if you're riding on a brick trail or road, you just vibrate the whole time. So depending on what you ride on, this is either going to be a plus or a negative with the solid tires. I mostly ride on smooth trails and the roads, so this was actually great. But for the times when I did ride on those bumpier roads, you could feel that was bumpy. Going back to the suspension, or really the lack of suspension, for $1,000, I would really expect to get some form of suspension in my scooter. Maybe it's just the air-filled tires, maybe it's a dedicated suspension. So to not get one for, again, $1,000 is a big disappointment. The last major feature to call out is the deck. And when I first unboxed this, I noticed that this is a super narrow deck compared to my XR Elite. And I was worried that I would feel kind of constrained when I was riding it. I actually didn't notice it at all. I felt like I had plenty of room when I was riding it. So the smallness or the size of the deck, not really an issue. So those are all the major features of the Unagi. Let's get into how the ride overall feels. Getting into the ride, and I hit on this a little bit, but I'm gonna cover it again. So with the Unagi, it has a lot of pep. Like I felt like I had really strong acceleration. I felt like I had really strong deceleration. So it's a fun scooter to ride. Going back to the tires though, it's a bumpy ride. So anytime you hit a bump, anytime you go off a curb a little bit, or there's a crack in the road, you really get jolted. Like the scooter feels it and you feel it, and I'm really more concerned about the scooter surviving. So I found that I was slowing down or being really wary of what would be on any other scooter, small cracks and bumps. So with the scooter, even though the solid tires are designed to give you kind of the peace of mind, they won't pop, they won't pierce, I found that I was more worried about them than I were with another scooter. And maybe other scooters that have bigger tires that are still solid tires would work, but these are 7.5 inches. So because they're so small, there's no suspension and they're solid, you really feel the shaking in the road. Last thing with the ride, I was worried about the deck. I was worried about being a small scooter, being a light scooter, but I felt pretty stable on this. Maybe not as stable with a bulkier scooter, but all things considered, I felt pretty safe on the scooter. Before I get into who should buy the Unagi Model One, for more scooter content, for more scooter unboxings, for more scooter reviews, please subscribe to the channel. And if you're liking this video, please leave a like. So who do I think should buy the scooter? If you've heard what I've been saying, you can probably guess the tone of this review. At $1,000 for less than premium stats with a less than premium ride, it's really tough for me to think of who should buy the Unagi Model One. You get the stats of a scooter that's essentially $500. You get the build of a scooter that's even less than that. So because of this, I can't really recommend the Unagi Model One to anyone. The only real person I could think of who would want this is just someone who wants a really cool looking scooter that looks modern, is more of a techie person, right? Was that too harsh? That actually sounded pretty harsh. Like I really did enjoy riding the scooter. My main gripe is just the pricing is off. For $1,000, I can't recommend anyone buy this. If it were half the price, this would be a consideration, because then the premium features like the folding, the materials, the design are starting to be a contender with the trade-off of price and stats. But for $1,000, you trade off too much speed, too much range, and too much quality of life with riding the scooter. So the Unagi Model One, I enjoyed riding the scooter. It's a lot of fun to ride, but for the $1,000, for the price and the stats that you get, this is not really a viable scooter on the market for most people. It does show where the technology is going though. This is one of the first scooters I've seen where everything kind of looks coherent and put together intentionally. It looks like the wheels are made for the scooter, the stem is made for the scooter, everything is made specifically for this scooter. A lot of other scooters, because they're kind of new, they look a little mechanical. They look like they're kind of just parts slapped together, whereas the Unagi Model One really does look like an elegant piece of technology. So that's my review of the Unagi Model One. I hope you enjoyed watching, and we'll see you next time.